It's kind of a cold, blustery day today. The wind is high, the temperature is low. The first major winter storm is starting to sweep across the nation, and this is Thanksgiving week. Okay, I brought us out to this spot right here because many years ago, there was a little church, a little wooden country church right here on this spot. It was called Curry Chapel. It was the first church I ever preached a sermon at after my home church. Now, at my home church, I'd preached 1 or 2 times as part of the youth group, and my pastor came over and helped me work through the sermon and do the outline. So in my youth, I'm a teenager, I think I know all there is about preaching. And so I'm feeling pretty confident about it, and I plan to be a pastor someday. And the pastor of this church asked me to come out and do a sermon for them. So I came, I brought my girlfriend, who is my wife now, and one of her friends. I stood up when it was time. I told them everything I knew about Christianity. It took about 5 minutes, maybe 10, and then I was stuck. Fortunately, my wife, or my girlfriend at the time, and her friend were good singers, so they got up and led us all in singing for the rest of the time so we would have a full service. Now, Marie, who was the pastor's wife at the time, the rest of her life, every once in a while, she would remind me of that in kind of a playful way. She was a sweet lady. Well, now, someplace over here, I'm told, there used to be a little hog house right here. There's a old well right here. Someplace in this little lot, many years ago, used to be a little country school. And that little country school was where my mom, my stepmom, and my Uncle Bob, the uncle that kind of encouraged me to go into ministry, all 3 of them went to that little school. They lived a mile or so over that way, and it's getting cold now, and I can just imagine what it would be like to walk through knee-deep snow, maybe 1.5 miles or so, back and forth. And they used to always joke about it being, a foot of snow or knee-deep snow, heavy wind, cold, and you had to walk 1 mile or 2 each way. It was uphill each way. That's true. There is a huge valley in here, and no matter if you're coming or going, you've got a big climb to make to that country school. But this is part of my heritage, my roots. It doesn't look like much now. You probably have to have a good imagination or have heard the stories. Now, speaking of childhood stories, have you ever heard the ones about when some little kid would do something not too intelligent, and they would get in trouble, and their parents would get after them, and then they'd say, "But Billy told me to do it." And then the mom would say, "Well, if Billy told you to jump off a bridge, will you do that?" My mom had a little bit of she was kind of a spunky lady. And she was a bit of a tomboy, and she would do things that people dared her to do. So the story goes, she was coming down this hill that you're going to see in just a minute, this is the walk home from school. The bridge, this little roadway here, culvert, was a little higher back then. It was taller than this, and it's a little farther down, but it's quite a ways down right now. And somebody dared her to jump off the bridge. And she did it. Now, if I get the story straight, she didn't really get hurt, but she sunk deep into some mud, and it took a couple of the guys to get her dug out. Don't know what to say about that one. There's the hill. No matter if you were coming or going from school, you had a hill that size going both ways. That way is one hill, and you can't see it, but right around that corner is the other hill that's about the same size. Now, many years ago, I'm talking over 65 years ago, this was a little driveway right here, and under the shadow of this tree just a little bit to that side was a little house, and in front of that were some little flowers like irises and things like that. Now, I show that to you because when I first came home from the hospital, this is where I lived. The mom and dad rented that little house from the landowners, and I grew up I didn't grow up very tall. I was a little bitty toddler, but I lived right here. And the landowners were good friends of ours. So even when I was as old as junior high or high school, I'd take my little bicycle, and probably junior high even as early, I'd take my little bicycle, toss a tent, a sleeping bag, and a rifle. It was a different day back then, on the back of my bicycle, and pedal from town, clear out here, and set up a little camp right in there. It was a lot of fun. This is, I guess I call this my old home place. I wasn't over here much more than a year. When I was still very little, we moved into town, and this house eventually got torn down. I remember one time when I was bringing my bicycle out here and looking around, I found one of my old toys laying out there, because I think I was the last person to live in the house. And I found one of my old toys out in what used to be the yard, and I found some flowers out here still. Oh, and on the way out here, what used to be the backyard back there, the field back there, the camera didn't catch them, I don't think, but I just counted 17 turkeys. They took off running back into the woods because turkeys don't like to be out and showing themselves the day before Thanksgiving. Well, we seem to be doing a little journey back in time on this thing. So let me say that many, 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 many years ago, just down the road from the place where I used to live, and I'm talking now 80, 85 years ago or more, 90 years ago, there was a little house right up here, and that was my grandmother's house. And Grandpa's. For a while, they got divorced. And that was where my mom and my stepmom and my Uncle Bob were all raised. You could see our house from there, and you could walk back and forth. And so my mom and my dad and I were here, and my grandma was over here. And then she followed us, and later she moved to town also. Just kind of a rundown nostalgia lane. When we are young, it takes a lifetime to grow a tree. Well, we, at that time, don't really know what growing a tree is. We can't see the tree grow. We can't fathom how long it takes. And we also can't fathom what a lifetime takes. When we're older, a lifetime goes by in the blink of an eye. All of the people that I have mentioned today, the pastor, the pastor's wife, the landowners, my grandmother, my grandfather, my mother, my stepmother, my dad, my uncle, because, everybody I mentioned today, none of them are still here. None of the buildings that I mentioned today still exist. All of their stories, all of the wonderful stories of my family growing up, they now only exist inside of me and my memories of the stories they've told me. I don't know that that's sad, that's just a part of life, but this week is Thanksgiving week. It's one of those weeks we bring families all together. This is one of those memory-making weeks. Do everything you can to make this week's memory something special in a good way. And I've got to say, if we're going to give thanks, I am thankful for my family and the heritage I came from that I've shared with you today. And God bless you.